Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sphere of Success, the podcast which looks at challenge and adversity in business and also in our personal lives, because to be honest, that's kind of all integrated, isn't it? And how we can alchemize, which is a favorite word of mine, transmute, transform that anxiety and that pressure and that challenge into something which is really wonderful. Sometimes when we've had our darkest moments, they can turn out to be the best things when we look back. And with the benefit of hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Sometimes it doesn't feel so great when we're going through it, but when we look back, we think, oh, yeah, that was pretty cool. And today I have a wonderful guest. It's Emma Heley. She is from Thinking Hat PR, and I'm going to read her details because this lady is quite inspirational. She's transformational in her approach in what she does. And talk about big clients. Oh, yeah, she handles them all. So let me read everything that I have for Emma. So she's an entrepreneurial force behind Thinking Hat Media, a leading PR and content agency, working with brands such as Amazon, L'Oreal, and TripAdvisor. Emma launched her own agency 6 weeks after an emergency cesarean in 2015 and is celebrating almost a decade in business. Well, if that doesn't say something about her courageousness, I just don't know what does. While the journey has presented its fair share of obstacles, this single mother of one has met every challenge with an unyielding determination and an inherently positive spirit, transforming each setback into a springboard for greater success. From its inception, Emma's vision for Thinking Hat included a powerful commitment to building one of the most diverse agencies in the UK, recognizing that diversity is not just a value, but a true superpower. And her guiding principle? Authenticity. The very force Emma credits for her stellar career and the driving energy behind her ambitious expansion into the Middle East. More about that later. And I'm going to read on because this is absolutely fascinating. Emma is the co-founder and managing director of Thinking Hat Media, a London-based PR content agency, as we've said, but interestingly, for big thinkers and visionary brands. Emma originally trained as a journalist and got into PR by chance. And sometimes the best things that happen to us in life are by chance, aren't they? She didn't know what public relations was until she started helping in the press office for a big fashion house after graduating university. In 2007, Emma joined former News of the World and Hello magazine editor Phil Hall at the PHA Group, where she became a consumer and influencer marketing specialist. Now that's something that's really on the uptake, isn't it? The influencer marketing side. And over the course of her nearly, and I don't know how she's managed to pack 20 years in because she certainly doesn't look old enough, nearly 20-year career, Emma has handled PR and crisis campaigns for some of the world's leading brands, including One Water, TripAdvisor, Sony Music, Church of Scientology, and Deliveroo, to name a few. So that's a hugely diverse group of companies there. Today, Emma is focused on building the London agency and scaling in the Middle East, where she has recently co-hosted a conference for UK founders exploring expansion opportunities. Emma, I just don't know how you find time to pack all this in. And you're a single mum as well. It's just like, whatever you've got, I'm having some of it because it sounds amazing. So, welcome to the show. It's absolutely an honor and a privilege to have such an amazing lady. And I have to say, your feet are so firmly on the ground. You are so authentic, so wonderful to speak with that you wear your heart on the sleeve, which is lovely. It's wonderful to have you.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. Honestly, it's a pleasure to be here. I don't do these things very often, actually. We're really good at PRing everybody else but ourselves. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today. Equally, from the minute we met, I just thought you were wonderful and authentic, and just someone I could really open up to and have an interesting dialogue with. So, thank you for having me. And also, in answer to your first question, how do I fit it all in? I'm a 5 a.m. babe. So I'm up at 5 every morning. checking the news, emails, work out at 6. And I got into the habit of doing that for my when my son was little and before he would wake up. So yeah, that's how I do it. But I'm good for nothing after 9 p.m. at night, I must say.
I love that. Yeah, getting into bed early because that's the best time to go to bed, actually. They say science tells you that it's when it's all that stuff going on in your brain and it's repairing itself and it's doing what it should do and your body's kind of doing all its thing. And they do say the optimum time to get to bed is at 9 and the optimum time to get up in the morning is at 5. I think there's a
Well,
circadian rhythm thing going on. So, but good
well,
for you, because 5 o'clock in the morning for me was this morning. I got up at 5 and because our clocks had just changed and we've gone forward an hour in the UK. And I'm like, whoa.
pretty brutal, especially in winter. It's a bit easier now that the mornings are getting lighter, but yeah, I think you're either a morning person or you're not. Like I say, I've got a really good friend and a client of mine, actually. She can work until midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and my brain just would not function at those hours. I have a cut off. I'm probably good until 7, 8 o'clock, and then yeah, it's time to kind of put the work to bed.
Oh, yeah. And you've got to have a life as well. That's the thing, your brain's got to think about something different. And I'm obviously doing a podcast here. So I'm an avid podcast listener and watcher. And I try and educate myself at the same time because I really feel that in those moments where I've got a little bit of, I wouldn't even say downtime, but just something which I know I'm not focused on the core activities for work, I'm like, well, I might as well just make sure that my brain is kept active, but in a different way. And I find that really good. And I try and read as well. If I can get a bit of a book in before I go to bed, before I go to sleep, that really does set me up as well. So, and you've got your child, so I'm sure that there's no moment that isn't accounted for.
Completely. But I agree with you. I mean, I've got a stack of books by my bed, which I aim to read before I go to sleep at night. Sometimes I'm really good and I'll read a couple of pages, but it really tires me out. I guess that's the point, right? And but for the most part, I'll just be on my phone catching up on all of the news headlines. But I also love a crossword for trying to keep my brain in shape. I love it, testing my knowledge with Sudoku and crosswords and quiz words and all of the rest of it. So yeah, I find that's quite good brain training, I think they call it.
Oh yeah, mine's a bit like mush by the time I get to that. I've never been good at Sudoku. It's just something that doesn't work for me. Words I'm all right with, but numbers are a bit
Yeah.
more of a faff. Bless you. So I have to say, when you talked about when you set up your business, show shortly after you've had an emergency cesarean, I mean that's amazing. How did you manage to cope with all of that?
Yeah, I do you know what? I'm not sure, Deborah, because actually it was never my intention to set up an agency. When I became pregnant, it was always my intention to go back to the agency that I'd worked for. I've been there a long time, learned so much, loved everyone. But something changed when my little boy was born, and equally, I was never prepared for a cesarean, let alone an emergency one. I'd give birth naturally. So that was a bit of a curveball that I wasn't expecting. And I think, I don't know, a light just kind of switched in me. And all of a sudden I was responsible for this little human. And then I thought, my life is going to change, but it really has to change. And I can't go back to what I was doing before because I needed a better work-life balance. So it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me that I hadn't ever planned for.
And that's it, isn't it? These plans that we make, and sometimes they can be derailed by something that is wonderful, but is hard.
Mm.
And I take my hat off to you to actually look at that, what I'd like you to unpack a little bit is what kind of feelings did you feel? Fearful? Did you feel overwhelmed? Because you've said in your bio, you go through things and you go out there and you really push from a resilient perspective. But was that something within you at that time, or was that something that helped that to grow?
Mm. I think I've always had that in me, which probably stems from my upbringing, raised by a single parent. My dad was in and out of prison, died when I was young. So my mum, I always saw my mum working two, three jobs to raise me and my sister. So I think I naturally adopted a really good work ethic from her. She was really resilient, and I think I learned that, and it's just ingrained in me. So when I thought, okay, I need to go it alone, I need to set up. I wasn't even calling it an agency. I was actually just going to be a little consultant, working with local entrepreneurs and businesses, and it all kind of snowballed after a year. But no, I wasn't fearful because I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I thought, what? I don't even actually think I thought if this fails, I can always go and get another job, because actually I never thought I would fail. I just got on with it and hoped that my experience, my enthusiasm, my work ethic would help get me to where I wanted to be. And actually the biggest incentive I had was this 6-week-old baby. And also I think I'd never been to hospital, I'd never had surgery. So recovering physically from such an invasive procedure that you're not ready for, I think that spurred me on as well, because I hate being ill, always want to be on the go, always moving, always achieving things, always really energized. So that slowed me down for a couple of weeks, where I think I had time to think actually, and just yeah, just made it happen.
Let's think about that energy, because this is really something which I know I've struggled with in the past, is keeping that sustained energy without feeling burnout. That's the thing, isn't it? When you've got a very long way that you need to put in consistent and sustained energy at high level. How do you show up for that? What goes through your mind to think, right, okay, this is how I'm going to cope with the next few weeks, the next few months, the next few years with this sustained energy?
Yeah, I love that question, Deborah, because energy I have in abundance. I don't know where it comes from. Perhaps it's a mindset thing. Um, but like I said previously, I think even in the face of adversity, when there are obstacles or challenges, I see them all as opportunities to either grow, to pivot, to learn, to recruit, to do something different, something bigger, something better. Um, so I'm not fearful of challenge. I will embrace it. And I think I've always just had that positive mindset, and days where, for the most part, I get up with a spring in my step every morning. I don't have the TV on. I mean, I look at the news headlines, but I'm all about music, good vibes, and that gets me in the right frame of mind. It's very rare I wake up in a bad mood or pessimistic, but there are days that have got me down through either difficult situations at work. We've definitely been under a lot of pressure in the past couple of years because of the economic climate. And, it has been difficult to sleep some nights, and you wake up the next morning, you feel a little bit anxious. But those days, I make sure hair and makeup is done. I'm wearing something I feel good in, and I just switch it on, turn it on, show up as much as I can. It's not an option not to, for me, especially when I'm leading a business. I've got a brilliant partner called Nick, who has got the same mentality as me. But when you've got a team looking up to you and you're leading, you've got to lead by example. So for me, it's not an option, but it also comes very naturally to me, which is why I think I gravitate to certain people, probably like you, Deborah, who, you've got that wonderful sunny disposition. And it doesn't mean that every day is perfect and, you know, I think it's just how you approach things that makes all the difference. And mindset, I think, is key.
I love this. Not, and thank you very much for the compliment, because if you'd have known me a few years ago before my nervous breakthrough, you wouldn't be saying that to me, because it was, and I'm going to bring something up that you said in your bio, this authenticity. I had more faces than a Rubik's Cube, to be honest, at one point. I didn't know who I was, and that's through the abuse and trauma that I felt as a child. And there were all these coping mechanisms that I put into place, and I carried with them until the nervous breakthrough, so a large part of my life. And I hadn't realized how I was showing up and how I was coming across to others. And then when you've got that mindset of negativity and victimhood, that's what I was attracting. I was attracting negativity, and I was attracting people that were perpetuating the cycle of victimhood.
Yeah.
And when I changed that element of me, because I saw how I was living from a real perspective, and I have to say, I mean, it was really shocking. I wouldn't say it was nice at all. It needed to happen. I'm so thankful that it did. But ultimately, it showed me that I got everything at complete odds with the way to live a contented. And I think the word is happy is it's kind of like one of them, like, that has it got much substance, but to be truly contented and enthused and inspired and grateful for life. For me, that takes, and you said that mindset, which is things don't happen to me, they happen for me. And it's how I handle that and how I look into that. Because one can look and spiral downwards, or one can look and spiral upwards. And when you spiral downwards, things get a heck of a lot worse. And you think, oh, nothing worse could happen, nothing else could happen that's better than that. And all of a sudden, boing, it happens, because you've actually, well, I've been in the past actually sort of subconsciously looking for the next bad thing. And so now, if I catch myself going into that mode, I can quickly go, how does that serve me? Is this actually really doing me any good?
Yeah.
And we all like a bit of a moan, don't we? I mean, let's face it, we wouldn't be human if we don't like a little bit of a
We
moan sometimes,
do.
you know. But ultimately, it's like, how long do I want to be in that state for? Because I've got a choice.
Totally. And I think some people like to dwell on the negative and, like you say, can adopt that kind of mindset of a victim and I'm really hard done by. And I think sometimes we are, and it is okay to feel like that. But when the chips are down and you're in a hole or things seem really bleak, it doesn't help to then kind of pander to those negative
Mm.
feelings. I think, when you're positive and you believe, I think great things can happen. I really do believe in manifestation as well. I mean, like I said earlier, our business has definitely gone through its fair share of struggles, certainly within the last 12 months. Faced challenges that we hadn't prepared for or ever thought that we would face. But it doesn't help to just wallow in negative situations, because I don't then think you necessarily attract the energy that you need to then grow and progress and move forward. It is how I genuinely feel. But sometimes, yeah, we need a down day. We need to just get under the duvet, eat a bar of chocolate, put on a sad film, whatever, and just feel it. I also really believe in feeling our emotions, whatever they may be, but not sitting in negative ones for too long, because I really don't think that helps.
Yeah, absolutely, Emma. I completely agree with you in that you have to let these emotions out and understand them for what they are. Because I used to make the mistake of trying to be toxically positive, squashing all of these negative emotions, a bit like a pressure cooker, if
Yeah,
pressure cookers are still a thing. I don't know if they are, but in that pressure cooker, and they have to go somewhere. And then
yeah,
when they go, it's like boom. And you think, oh my goodness, I've obviously been keeping a heck of a lot of stuff under wraps. And often the nearest and dearest that you have are the ones that get it double barreled because it's got to go out somewhere. And then the shame and the guilt that I used to feel for like losing complete control, losing my temper, as it were. Um, and then in that dark moment wallowing in it, and then you can't make decent decisions from that space. So I'd like you to, if we could go into how that's helped with your attitude and your realistic approach to how you take that challenge and adversity. What has happened in your business as a result of you adopting that way to drive your business?
um just want to pick up on something you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
said, were actually about being in control, because actually, and I don't know how many other people can relate to this, but I've realized over the years that although I'm, very positive, got a great outlook, always approach everything very solutions driven. But the minute I lose control, or I feel like I'm losing control, is when that's what gets me down and my mood can shift, because yeah, I'm not in control and I feel like things are slipping away, or I can't bring something back that, should be closer to me in the business, or in whatever scenario. And that's an uncomfortable feeling, but I recognize that. So I've and there are things in life that are completely out of our control, no matter what measures we take to change that. And I think actually coming to terms with that, knowing how I respond to losing control of certain situations, um, is, I think, has been really helpful for me as an entrepreneur and as a founder, because you can take the losses then, when there are losses, or say, if you lose a member of staff or a client doesn't renew, or um, you learn not to take it personally. Um, no client will stay with you forever. No member of staff will. You hope that they do. And actually, we've got really good retention rate in both areas. But yeah, I think for me, I realised that's when I can get frustrated. But you can't control everything. But I think for our business, like I said, I mean, actually, if we go back to COVID, which is 5 years ago, incredibly, we actually grew 40%. And part of the reason for that was because Amazon is a client of ours, and obviously they did extremely well. Um, during COVID. So we never had to furlough anyone. We've never taken investment. We've grown the business organically over the past 10 years, which I'm really proud of. But I think certainly in recent years with, um, as I say, there's, I think, been financial challenges for our industry in general, because PR is sometimes seen as a bit of a luxury. It's a nice to have. People don't always think it's business critical. I would argue, actually, in some cases it is. But I think, regardless of what's thrown at you, I think, yeah, I've always been really good at kind of taking it and adapting and kind of dealing with whatever the challenge is. And like I said, being solutions driven, as opposed to, oh God, it's another problem. Because again, you're just not going to get anywhere. And I hope I inspire that in my team as well. I mean, I think, most of us are quite solutions driven at Thinking Hat Media. But it's good to kind of, I guess, lead by example when faced with an issue. Okay, what's the solution? What can we do to turn this around?
this is something that you've mentioned about, and I'll bring this back to control again. Actually, when I let go of trying to control everything and knowing that actually when you're in the flow, when you're in that right space, things will naturally happen, and trusting that that will happen. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo way. I think that when I'm open and I'm not trying to force things, whether they be into square pegs or round holes into round pegs or whatever it is, when I let go and I just let things happen, it became that much more natural, and it became easier, and it became quicker,
Yeah.
and it attracted more interest. It
Mm.
attracted synchronicities that I couldn't have planned for. Why that happens, there's probably some kind of science to it, but I suppose I was then more open to opportunities, more open to new ideas, new concepts, because I wasn't trying to regimented do. We are human beings and not human doings is the phrase, isn't it? But the other thing that benefited were my team, because albeit that I've never wanted to micromanage, because I've hated that when it's happened to me, and it has in the past, and I really didn't like it. So I was determined not to be a micromanager, but in a way of trying to force different personality types into something which I felt was congruent to my own. And then when I let them be them,
Mm.
explore and obviously make mistakes, which is the way that you learn, but obviously you do that in a safe environment where you can, but every now and again things go wrong and you haven't expected it. But when that happens, not to kind of like, I was very quick to go, right, well, what's the solution? What's the solution? And then I'm like, oh gosh, I can't even breathe yet. Let me just think. And now I let that process happen. And I find that the answers that they're coming up with, the solutions that they're coming up with, are far better than what I would have thought of.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely resonates with me. Especially that control piece, Deborah. And for me, I'd gone from, and I wasn't taught how to navigate this because it happened without me realizing, but going from being, you know, on the front lines, running PR campaigns for clients, account managing, being in control of the strategies and coming up with ideas and delivering coverage and liaising with journalists, to then actually maneuvering from that role to then a managing director role, and co-founder as well. My role and responsibilities have changed so much. I don't know when I stopped doing what I was good at and what I was trained to do, and when I then became this businesswoman and entrepreneur, it kind of feels like I woke up one day, I was like, oh, this is my job now. I'm not doing that, but that's what I love and that's what I'm good at and that's what I know. So then I was trying to kind of teach myself. I've got very good self-awareness, I like to think. And I'm very reflective as well. So I think everything I am as a leader, are things that I admire in other leaders, and also what I don't like, I try not to bring to the workplace. But part of that shift in mentality and that control piece was delegating. It's bringing people in and not feeling like you have to do everything, because actually I'm not good at doing everything. My team are far better than I am at everything: PR, content, coming up with ideas, strategies. Anytime I see a piece of work, I'm like, wow, I'm blown away. And that's a big learning, I think, for anyone um, who launches a business and then finds themselves scaling it into something bigger than just themselves, there is a piece of work to do there that sometimes you don't even realize you're doing. So yeah, it does completely resonate. And like you say, it makes life easier when you're empowering your team to do stuff that they're really good at. And I think as well, as founders, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, you think that you need to have all the answers. Well, we absolutely don't, and I certainly don't. I look to my team. They're so innovative. They've got their fingers on the pulse. They're full of ideas, and the perspectives are just so fresh. Hence why that diversity piece is really important to me. So yeah, it resonates so much. I think letting go, trusting in your team, empowering them to do the great work is actually I think what makes a good leader.
I love that. Yeah. Letting go and trusting and doing the team, because I think then I've seen my team expand beyond my wildest imagination from when I first hired them, and the growth that they've undergone. And I look now and I think, and clients sometimes, oh, do you do this? Do you do that? And I went, no, my team do that. No, no, my team do that. No, my team. And I'm like, oh, all right. We're
Yeah,
going to think, well, what on earth do you do? I do a lot, but
yeah,
it's not that the job, as it were, as you quite rightly said, it's not what I started doing. I don't do what I did anymore because they're much more capable of doing that better, more effective within shorter time frames. So when I get involved, they go, oh, Deborah, my thing is with technology, I'll be honest. I mean,
oh, same.
oh God, you shouldn't say these like, I'm not very good, because people would say neuro-linguistic programming, you're
Oh,
programming yourself not to be good.
yeah,
Well, I'm not being funny, but I'm not very good. I'm just not. So
no.
everybody in my team who is, and I have to say that's where I love the age differences in our team, because the youngsters, they've kind of like got this innate understanding of what it all is and how it all fits together. And I'm like, and they go, and we're on stuff, and they go, it's all right, I'll do that. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And I ask them, and I go, did you understand any of that? And they go, yeah, yeah. I'm like, and they go, but you didn't, did you? And I go, no.
Amazing. This is what makes the world go round, doesn't it? Because when I started thinking hat, having a really diverse team was so important to me, because and actually the reason it was so important to me is the agency I started out in wasn't diverse in the slightest. In fact, I always felt like I didn't belong there, because everybody's brilliant. Oxbridge, educated PRs from, pretty wealthy families, obviously all white, middle class, really lovely, super intelligent. And, I'm a poor girl from a single parent family who had, sounded really common, and got a degree at the University of East London, which I was very proud of. I was the first person in my family to go to uni. But being around that caliber of people, honestly, I always felt like the odd one out, and I didn't like it. And there wasn't really anyone of color, just complete lack of diversity, and I really wanted to change that, because who wants to work with a load of carbon copies? I certainly wouldn't want to
It's
work
the
with
cookie cutter, isn't it? It's nothing to do with the people, and they're lovely people, I'm sure, and
Lothian.
everybody, you can't help where you're born, can you? That's just life, isn't it? You're dealt the hand that you get, aren't you? And so but it's that different, and you said thinking hat, which I love. It's a bit Harry Potter-esque, isn't it? With the little hat that goes round, or whatever that's called. But
Yeah.
it's that thinking. We've got to have a diversity of thought process, and that comes from being different culture, different maybe sexual orientation. It could be that you've brought into a religious or non-religious environment, and that's going to shape how you think. And this is beautiful because we've got that wonderful melting pot. And I'm very respectful and absolutely love all the diversity that we've got in my team. And that's from age profile, from the color of
Yeah.
our skin to absolutely everything. We've probably got a little bit of a smorgasbord of everything. And it's just wonderful because somebody might just have a slightly different take on something. And you think,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I never have thought of that.
Completely. And I think, that's part of the reason why I think it's so important. And also, particularly in the work we do in PR and comms, it's all about building relationships and people by people, and people by people like themselves. So if you've got the same profile, you're not going to appeal to everybody, which I've realized. And we do a lot of kind of matching and mirroring with clients that come on board, because we kind of assess their personality, how they communicate, whether they're introvert, extrovert, how process driven they are. And we can kind of assess this pretty quickly. And then we will assemble a team that matches their energy. That they won't all be the same, because you need a little bit of diversity in that sense as well. But I think it's really important to match people to like-minded uh teammates. So yeah, I everyone I work with is so different, and I love that. And they're all brilliant in their own different ways, which is why I genuinely feel like everybody's diversity is a superpower, and whatever combination that comes in. For me, and it took a long time for me to see that in myself. Actually, I always felt like I wasn't good enough, had imposter syndrome, and because I didn't sound well educated, and I probably wasn't. I mean, I'd gone to university, but you know, I always felt inferior to my peers. And then I realized, actually, I'm good at building relationships because I love people and I'm authentic, and people buy into me, they trust me. And I think that's a really powerful thing.
And I love the fact that, you know what, I have had massive imposter syndrome. I was told by both my parents I was useless, what have you, from the abuse and trauma. And I held that in my subconscious for years. And I've never been great sort of like with tests and academic things. And some people really excel at that. So it didn't really ever bring out my superpowers, in the sense I have them, but in the system that I went through to get my education, my superpowers weren't necessarily evident because they weren't something that fitted within a quite closed, narrow way of defining intelligence in that way. And so I just got the feeling that everybody was better than me. And then come the nervous breakthrough, it seems like come the revolution, doing something where I didn't have a voice originally in my own authentic truth, and developing that, which was excruciatingly painful to begin with. And then I worked and worked and worked and worked, like, you know, when you first pick up a musical instrument, and if you play one, I don't particularly any of them very well, but it's like anything that you start, you're not very good at it. So of course you're going to have imposter syndrome because you're just not as practiced as the other people. And that's just life, you know. So I kind of got out over myself in that regard, thinking, well, I've got to start somewhere. And then because I was following my purpose, before I was becoming my what I felt I was divinely called to do, divine in every which way you want to describe that, I felt that I had to do it. Like you said, there was not a moment that you said that you'd fail, because that wasn't even in your thinking. There wasn't any space for that. And so that pushed me. And then the feedback that I got from other people being on my show and podcast and saying, how they felt about it, wonderful words that you've said to me, etc. All of a sudden, I thought, well, why would I be getting that if I was useless? Why would I be getting that if I wasn't good at what I did? So listen to people, give them the, what is it word, the correct credit for having
Yes.
some brains and some nous to actually think that you're okay.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I was courting it and thinking, oh, yeah, well, I'm wonderful, aren't I? It was I started to believe what people were telling me about myself.
And Deborah, isn't it so hard to believe nice things? It's easier to believe negative stuff than to actually take a compliment and to think, oh no, I am good. I am a nice person. No, I am kind. I am good at my job. We love to believe all the negative, toxic stuff about us. And I don't know if it's a British thing, whether it's, ingrained in our culture. But I'm glad that has changed for you. It's definitely changed for me. And not that it's made me arrogant in any way, but I can take a compliment and I think, no, I am good. I'm just as good as the next person. I might do things differently. My approach is different, but I'm bloody good, you
Yeah,
know?
oh, I love it. Absolutely. And I don't necessarily think it's a cultural thing. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I realized when I was with groups of people, because I was educated in one of those sorts of environments that you talk that everybody sort of like was very similar to
Mm.
each other. A lot of people went off to Oxford and Cambridge universities and spoke in a certain way and did certain things. And I always felt a bit of an outsider. Don't know why, but I probably would from my childhood. I was a bit sort of outward. I wasn't really in a group. And I spoke to a friend of mine who came from that kind of background, and she's a close friend of mine. And I was talking like that, and she went, did you not think that we all felt like that? We all felt misplaced, out of our comfort zones, trying to impress each other, feeling our feet, we none of us. She said, because she said she realized that she felt odd, and she went, well, I can't be the only one that feels like this. So everybody else must be feeling it to a degree. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Probably thinking probably pretty much exactly the same thing in different ways. So I just think the only person I can really work on is me now. That's the thing. And I find that that's
Mm,
helped enormously with my resilience and I know this sounds trite, because I didn't love myself at
mm,
all, very much at all. I didn't want to be around, so I didn't love myself. But now I know. And again, people think, oh, crikey, but I'm a miracle. But we're all miracles. That's the thing. We
yeah.
all are.
Mm,
And when I realized I was a little miracle, that all, it's like, whoa. And you're a miracle, and everybody listening is a miracle. And people go, for God's sake, but it's absolutely true. The chances of becoming a human being are so infinitesimally small. I've probably not said that word right, but they're so small that when we become a human being, it's like we've won about 8 national lotteries. I mean, it's just like, oh. So that in itself, just by being a human being, is just like, oh, of all the things we could have been.
yeah. I love that. And it makes me feel emotional actually for you to, describe your so and me and everyone as little miracles because it is. And I think we're all really blessed to to be in this life doing what we're doing, us having this conversation. I think it's an incredible thing, and we are lucky, and that's the thing about life, isn't it? Because when things are not going well and we're sad or we're grieving or we're anxious or we're in a really dark place, you pray for the sunshine and the brighter days and the good times and that good fortune, but without I'm going to quote Dolly Parton in a minute if I can think of the phrase, but if you want rainbows, I think you've got to put up with the rain or something like that, she said, which is true because we would never embrace all the good stuff if we didn't know how it felt to be in pain and worried and to have all that kind of negative energy from time to time. So um yeah, good and bad. It's just life, isn't it? We have to embrace kind of every part of that.
So, talking about embracing every part, I'm conscious of the time, but I want to get in this whole thing that you're doing in the Middle East because that sounds so exciting. And whereas you could be just saying, "Oh, let's focus on what we're doing and doing it," you're going branching out and expanding, which I think is amazing. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, very excited, Deborah. So I was invited to co-host a conference in Dubai earlier this year. And we took founders over to the region who want to scale. And part of the reason for me to be invited was because we are scaling our business over there, but because of the startups and scale ups we work with who want to do the same thing. Um, and I think we're going to see more and more of this. I mean, we're reading in the media every day how many millionaires and billionaires are leaving the UK for the likes of UAE and Monaco, Switzerland, wherever else, because it is very difficult to grow a business here at the moment. It feels like innovation is quite stunted. We're paying a fortune for tax. It doesn't. I don't know. I don't feel like it's fostering that creative energy that entrepreneurs need to either launch a business from scratch or to scale what they have. And that's what the Middle East has in abundance. So yeah, really excited for us to be launching over there. We haven't got a date yet because there's a bit of paperwork to be done. And it's very different actually from launching a business here to doing it over there. You need licenses, you need an Emirates ID, you need a bank account, you need to know what territory you can work in. So there's lots, oh, you need a visa, obviously. So there's lots of steps to take to get there, which through our partners on the ground, we're helping UK founders go over there and scale. And we're doing the same thing as well. So it's really exciting. On the flip side of that, so as well as obviously helping UK founders with their PR and comms over there, we'll be working with brands in the Middle East that want to raise the profile of what they're doing in UK and Europe. So it's twofold, really. We're really excited. It's a massive development for our agency. And excited to see how it all unfolds this year. We're back in Dubai in October for another conference, which is great. Hopefully, taking more founders out there to show them what the opportunities are commercially, culturally. So it's really exciting. I feel like the Middle East is certainly where we need to be as an agency. And yeah, watch this space, Deborah.
I love it, and that's the thing, being bold,
Yeah,
having very audacious goals that frighten you and scare you and push you forwards. And because you know what, when you're doing that, bigger things will happen. And serendipity is always the way when you're following your dream and your purpose, people, places, circumstances, and things come into your life that if you're open to the opportunities that could be presented by them, you think, I could never even imagined that XYZ would have happened. And I see that for you with what you're doing. It's going to be probably far more than what you anticipated because you're in there, you're doing it, you're working hard at building something, and that will bring its own unexpected, beautiful rewards as well. So, congratulations on that. It's wonderful to hear.
thank you. I read something the other day actually, which said if it gives you energy, then it's meant for you. And that's how I feel about Dubai in particular. There was something that connected me to that region. I've worked really hard to get us out there, and hopefully that all comes to fruition in the next few weeks. So thank you. Hopefully next time I see you, I'll have an update. In fact, maybe we'll be doing this from my office in Business Bay, or farm, you know.
Well, I'll be there. I'll be doing a podcast out there. It sounds very good. You'll have to keep me on the list for your founders. It sounds brilliant. Oh, wonderful. And before we close, Emma, how can people get hold of you?
Well, if anyone wants to contact us, we're on Instagram as well. And if you want to drop me an email, it's emma@thinkinghatpr.com.
Emma at thinkinghatpr.com. I love it. And do be in touch with Emma because Emma has so much wisdom. She's packed a lot in a very short period of time, realistically. I know she says over 20 years, but really, I mean, what you're doing right now is explosive. And as I said, you don't have to be an enormous brand to work with Emma. She does work with other businesses as well, striving to improve and to add value as they go. But yes, also for large corporates, Emma is certainly the lady with Thinking Hat PR to be in touch with because she can really make things happen, as you've heard on this podcast. Limitless energy and lots of creativity, not just from her, but from her team as well. So thank you so much, Emma, for being such a beautifully eloquent, energetic, and inspiring guest.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. No, it's an absolute honor. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And for everybody listening, thanks for tuning in and watching. And I always say this, it's just wonderful to have you. Thank you. To do it with you is just, it's what is in my blood. So I hope you found this useful. I know I have. So be in touch with Emma. And thank you so much for tuning in. It's amazing, your support. Truly appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe, and share because you never know who this could really resonate with. And so until next time, be successful, and we'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye now.